Good morning, everyone, and welcome in here on Live Now from Fox. The time is 6:11 on the East Coast and 3:11 on the West Coast. My name is Josh Breslow, and I'll be here with you for the next several hours as we break down all of your top stories and live events from across the country and across the world. And right there on the right-hand side of your screen, you are taking a live look over the Strait of Hormuz that is coming in from marine traffic as we bring you all of the latest here on the conflict taking place between the U.S. and Iran. Now, we do have this information here as the U.S. military has launched a seventh straight day of strikes against Iran as Iran continues to fire at Gulf Arab nations, including Iraq, Jordan, and Kuwait. U.S. Central Command posting overnight in part. U.S. Central Command hit surveillance sites, military logistics infrastructure, underground weapons storage, and maritime capabilities. U.S. forces employed fighter aircraft, aerial drones, and warships in addition to other assets. Again, that is a post coming in here from CENTCOM as they've been providing updates on the internet there. In the meantime, Iran's judiciary says it has indicted President Trump for alleged war crimes along with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Very likely this will go anywhere, but Iran International English posting this right here on your screen, saying in part, Iran's judiciary has issued indictments against U.S. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the recent war. That's according to the judiciary spokesperson there in Iran, saying, quote, indictments have been issued against the U.S. president and the prime minister of the Zionist regime, end quote. I do want to talk about all of the latest developments here that are coming out of the region. So let's bring in Blaise Misztal, the Vice President for Policy over at JINSA. Thank you so much, as always, Blaise, for taking the time to join us here super early on Live Now from Fox.
Good morning, Josh. It's good to be with you.
Thank you so much. And first off, I want to start by talking to you really just about this comment here that's been made by the judiciary there in Iran, saying that they're indicting President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. I have to imagine that really overall doesn't mean much.
It certainly does not. I can't imagine that either President Trump or Prime Minister Netanyahu will be setting foot in Iran anytime soon to be taken under arrest or into court proceedings there. But it does show how Iran fights, because in addition to the missiles and drones that we've been hearing about during the course of this war, Iran's most potent weapon has actually been information. When we've seen this in repeated wars against Israel, what it tries to do is convince the world that Iran is the victim, Iran is right, Iran is on the side of justice, and its adversaries are delegitimized, that they're using unlawful tactics, that they're not fighting fairly, that they're doing horrible things. We've seen this repeatedly as Iranian-sponsored terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah try to convince the world that Israel is committing genocide or Israel is committing killing women and children wantonly, even when they're the ones who attack civilian infrastructure and targets and rape and murder. And Iran is now using that same playbook against the United States. Iran is the one that launches ballistic missiles indiscriminately at apartment buildings, homes, and schools. Iran is the one that just hit a desalination plant in Kuwait, denying civilians water. Definitely a war crime. But here it is trying to convince the world that everything it does is just, and the United States and Israel are the war criminals. So this is definitely a propaganda effort as it tries to weaken the U.S. on the world stage, try to drive a wedge between it and its partners. And it is a very potent weapon for it, and one that the United States should be countering.
When you talk about U.S. Central Command and the fact that they posted here saying that this is a seventh day in a row of those strikes that are taking place on different locations there in Iran, what does that say about where things kind of stand right now between the U.S. and Iran, as talks have obviously stalled and the military action is picking up once again?
Yeah, I think we seem to be in this day-by-day pattern where President Trump is clearly choosing to escalate strikes on a daily basis. He seems that we're sort of picking new targets, more sensitive targets with each coming day, but not committing to what's going to come the next day. I think as President Trump is looking to see how the Iranians respond, if they want to re-enter negotiations, if they want to cry uncle, if they want to cease their own attacks or reopen the Strait. And since that hasn't happened, we see President Trump choosing to continue attacks the next day, signaling that at some point down the road, he says next week, perhaps we'll go and hit even more sensitive targets like Iranian energy facilities. But it really seems like at this point, this is a slowly escalating set of strikes meant to try to give Iran an off-ramp, and each day we're looking to see if they're taking it. But I don't think that that is likely at this point, given everything that Iran has signaled.
And I'm going to pop this up on your screen because you have, and this is kind of going back to what you were talking about with the propaganda. You have U.S. Central Command that is doing these fact checks that we're seeing where they say Iranian forces claim that they attacked that location there over in Syria and captured or killed American troops in the process. They say that's false. And the fact is that no U.S. troops in the region have recently been killed or captured. However, CENTCOM does say that at least 13 U.S. service members have been injured there. Not sure on the extent of the injuries, but that happening over the last week. And they also claim Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, that is, of course, the IRGC, claims that 2 oil tankers have exploded in the Strait of Hormuz after hitting mines in the international waterway. Fact, like most IRGC claims, this is false. So what does that say as you're looking at some of these statements that are made by Iran? And again, this goes back to what you were talking about, where a lot of it really is propaganda, and people shouldn't necessarily believe anything that they're coming or hearing coming in there out of Iran.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's obviously not just the fact that the Iranians are saying it, but they're putting out this misinformation and hoping that others pick it up and spread it and find it on social media. And you see it not coming from an Iranian account, but from someone else that you think is legitimate, which is why it's very important that Central Command is engaged in this effort, and they have been since the start of the war, responding very quickly, because we've seen all sorts of Iranian claims that they shot down American jets, that they've taken American pilots hostage, that America is striking schools, or these sorts of claims about killing or capturing American service members. And it has been a really important part of the war that Central Command is fighting, not just in the air, not just shooting down the Iranian missiles and drones, but also defending against Iranian propaganda, fighting in the information domain, fighting in social media. And I think it's been a very important part of Iran's trying to maybe affect American opinion, make us believe that we're losing, that Iran is more powerful than we are. And I think it's incredibly important that is also something that is dispelled. And I think Central Command is really to be commended that they have included this as part of their operations.
And U.S. Central Command also releasing this video right here. This was overnight as they talk about that 7th day of strikes. We've seen a tower that was hit over at a port considered to be a key port. You also have bridges that have been struck in that area. So the U.S. escalating those strikes there on Iran as the talks once again have kind of stalled there. We're not seeing much in the way of any kind of activity. Now, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, and others, I believe Bahrain as well, reporting here over the past several hours that Iran has fired missiles there at their countries. They've been intercepted. Why exactly is Iran firing at these Gulf Arab nations, and what are they hoping to accomplish as we're talking about their neighbors in the Middle East?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to watch who Iran has been retaliating against as these strikes have gone on now for 7 days. I think the pattern here is that Iran is trying to put pressure on U.S. Gulf partners, on their infrastructure, trying to get them to convince the United States to back down, as well as starting to once again try to close down the Strait of Hormuz, trying to put the United States and the world under oil pressure. But I think it's been interesting that at first we only saw Iran attacking Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait and Bahrain, and now we're seeing that expand, including Qatar and Oman, who have been mediators in this. So they're supposedly trying to go back and forth between the United States and Iran, help negotiate a solution, but Iran is now attacking them. And apparently last night there were reports that now a missile has been fired at Saudi Arabia for the first time in this escalation, which Iran had previously tried to stay away from hitting. So Iran is slowly also trying to escalate its attacks, trying to start with the smaller countries and work its way up to the ones that it thinks have the most pressure, have the most leverage with the United States, have the most ability to compel President Trump to back off the attacks. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to escalate, if they start attacking. Now, the United Arab Emirates has been the only one not attacked so far, and obviously Israel. But that would be a big step up and an invitation for the U.S. to hit Iran even harder. So it's going to be interesting to see if Iran holds that in reserve or does start attacking those countries now.
And I want to pop this up here on your screen because we always ask our viewers at home here how they feel about a variety of topics. And Blaise, not sure that you're able to see this, but essentially we're asking the question there at the bottom of your screen. And it simply says, what should be top priority for U.S. amid the Iran conflict here? And the options are to pursue diplomacy, take down the regime, protect U.S. forces, or open the Strait of Hormuz and get everything moving once again. All you got to do is scan that QR code on the bottom right-hand side of your screen or go to livenowfox.com/connect. And what you're going to see are the options there on the bottom updating in real time. So I'm going to leave it up for just a bit. Now, take down the Iranian regime right now, showing up at 100%. But of course, we're just getting the first votes coming in. So that's going to change here as more people open their phones. Is there a world where you see the Iranian regime, the current regime there, actually being taken down?
Look, anything is possible, and this is a regime that just 6 months ago murdered tens of thousands of its own people in the streets, but more importantly, had hundreds of thousands of people in the streets demanding that the regime be gone. This is not a regime that is popular. This is not a regime that the Iranian people want to see remain in power, and this is not a regime that cares about the Iranian people in any meaningful way. And so sooner or later, it will go. I think the question is, when will that be, and what can be done to help influence that? I think it's not going to go because the United States wants it to go. It's not going to go because the United States sends in troops to topple it. We're not engaged in regime change. But I think this is a regime that will eventually be brought down by its own people. And we saw that conflict can weaken the regime after we had Operation Midnight Hammer and the 12-day war in June. 6 months later, we saw those massive protests in January of this year. I think that under the right conditions, we can see something similar happen after this war if we use it to weaken the regime, weaken its ability to provide for the Iranian people, and weaken its ability to terrorize and oppress the Iranian people. We could see them once again be weakened and the Iranian people rise up. We know that there were plans by the United States and Israel to help arm some opposition among the Iranian Kurdish population, which could have actually taken the fight to the Iranian regime. Looking at those plans, maybe reviving them, could also help hasten that day. So yes, I think this regime will fall. I think that we can help make that happen sooner, but obviously that's not something that we can control or dictate the timing of.
We also know, and this has been an issue here, not just really since all of this began, but we're talking years and years back as the protesters, several of them, of course, detained, dozens upon dozens, hundreds upon hundreds, and publicly executed there in front of other people, leading them to maybe not protest anymore, to not take to the streets. Do you think that is serving as a deterrent there to prevent people from protesting, or do you think they're just going to do it anyway to try to make their point?
Yeah. Look, Iran has engaged in this playbook for a long time. Just thinking back a couple of years, we had massive protests starting in 2022 after Iranian so-called morality police beat to death a young girl because she didn't wear her hijab properly. She didn't cover her hair in just the right way. We had massive protests as a result of that. And Iran used its playbook. It responded to those protests with brutal violence, killing, jailing, beating thousands of protesters. So people who go to the streets in Iran know what to expect. And that did not keep them at home in January of this year when once again they turned out to protest the regime. They knew the risks they were making. We saw there were all sorts of young people who were going out to protest, and they were making videos before they went to protest saying, if this is the last night of my life, it's worth it because I need to fight this regime. So the Iranian people have no illusions about who is governing their country, whose thumb they live under. And I think under the rest, both believing that the regime is weak, but also that the rest of society is with them, that there's going to be other people joining them in the streets. But under those conditions, they're clearly not afraid to go out.
What are you going to be watching for here in the coming hours, days, weeks? That's always my final question for folks, because it's interesting to hear kind of their take on this and what they expect could happen and what they're really watching for.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important to see whether the U.S. campaign in coming days remains in the sort of tit for tat, slowly escalating day by day pattern that we've seen for the last week, or if President Trump decides to return to fuller military operations with sort of a very clear objective and an attempt to, I think in this case, what he's most interested, reopen the strait, which is to say, not try to pressure Iran through one-off strikes to do it themselves, but to actually take the initiative and use U.S. forces to reopen the strait ourselves, because clearly that is the most important thing economically, politically for the region. And I think now as a matter of U.S. credibility to say, we signed a deal that said the strait would be opened, Iran violated that deal, and we now need to show that if the U.S. says the strait's going to be open, we will reopen it.
All right, Blaise, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here, helping to break down all the developments there in the Middle East. Anything that you want to add? Anything we maybe missed here before I let you go?
Yeah, I think there's an important there's an importance to watching two other fronts that we haven't seen really start in the last 7 days. One is obviously the front in Lebanon, where Israel has been fighting Iran's proxy Hezbollah to see if Hezbollah resumes its attacks, tries to get into this conflict on behalf of Iran. And the other is the front that wasn't really active at all during this war ever since February, although everyone expected it. And that's the Houthis in Yemen, another Iranian proxy that has previously attacked shipping through the Red Sea, another global choke point. And there's been talk of the Houthis getting involved this time around. There was a couple of attacks back and forth between the Houthis and the Saudis earlier this week. That's the one I'm really watching to see if we see greater activity there, because that could spell a spread and escalation of this war.
All right, Blaise, thank you so much for being here with us, helping to break it down. We definitely appreciate it as always.
Thanks for having me, Josh, and have a great weekend.
You too. And we're popping up some of these posts right here as we remind you that we have that poll on the bottom of your screen. What should be the top priority for the U.S. amid the Iran conflict? And it's an overwhelming majority right now, 88% saying take down the regime. Up next, you have protect U.S. forces at 5%, followed by open the strait at about 4%, and then pursue diplomacy at 3%. I'm looking to see exactly how many people have voted. Only about 300 right now. But if you do want to cast your vote and have your voice heard, all you got to do is scan that QR code on the bottom right-hand side of your screen or go to livenowfox.com/connect. While you're there, make sure to bookmark that site because it does have all of our polls, questions, all of that that. You won't have to scan the QR code anymore. You can just go right to that page and check out the questions. Here from Iran, International English, it says that Iran will enter a phase of, quote, full-scale offensive operations if the U.S. continues its attacks for another 2 or 3 days. That is according to a military advisor to Iran's Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. He said that on Friday on Iranian state TV. He added that Iran would recognize, quote, no political boundaries in its attacks and warned that the U.S. should expect waves of Iranian missiles and drones. He said Tehran had so far refrained from launching a ground offensive and carrying out heavy attacks beyond its borders because it wanted to avoid triggering wider international security crises. He also said that Iran would not abandon seeking revenge for the killing of its leader, adding that the country's future security and stability depended on carrying that out. And of course, we also have these images that are coming in from Iran International English, as it says that U.S. missile strikes damaged 6 bridges in Iran's southern province there on Friday, disrupting the Bandar Abbas Lar Highway. State media reporting that information. The bridges were hit in Bandar Kamir County, damaging the road link in that area. Again, we've seen photos and videos, as well as from U.S. Central Command, that show all of that taking place. Now, the State Department has also issued this alert right here over the past several hours, saying Middle East, due to high tensions in the Middle East, the security environment remains complex with the potential for unforeseen escalation. We remind Americans in the region of the continued need for caution and encourage them to monitor the news for breaking developments. Americans traveling in or through the region should also check with their air carriers to make sure their flights are still scheduled. Americans should reconsider travel to and through the Middle East. And essentially, that's been kind of the way that the State Department has been viewing all of this over the past several months since Operation Epic Fury began back in February. Again, we are asking the question, what should be the top priority for the U.S. as the conflict continues with Iran? Scan that QR code, bottom left-hand side or right-hand side of your screen, or go to livenowfox.com/connect. Your options: pursue diplomacy, take down the regime, protect U.S. forces, or open the strait.